Part 1. The Unexpected Discovery. Jake Martinez wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the clock on the wall. It was 3 in the morning on Kepler Station. The place was quiet except for the low hum of the air systems. Jake liked working the night shift. No one bothered him, and he could fix things in peace. He was a mechanic, and a good one. Jake knew how to repair almost any machine in the galaxy. Human machines, alien machines, it did not matter to him. He had a gift for understanding how things worked, even if they came from strange worlds far away. Jake was 34 years old and had been working on space stations for 12 years. Kepler Station sat on the edge of space, controlled by the Zephyrians. The Zephyrians were an old alien race that most people respected but feared a little. They were very smart and had technology that humans could barely understand. The night was going well until the emergency alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed all over the engineering bay. Jake ran to his control panel and saw the problem. A ship was in trouble somewhere near the asteroid belt. It was sending out a distress signal. Jake pressed the communication button. "This is Martinez in engineering. I see the distress signal. Jake, this is Captain Lisa Harper. We need you for a rescue mission. The ship that is in trouble is Zephyrian. We might need someone who knows their technology." "On my way, Captain," Jake said. He grabbed his spacesuit and tools. Jake had worked on Zephyrian machines before. They were complex, but he usually figured them out. 10 minutes later, Jake met Captain Harper and Danny Coleman at the shuttle bay. Danny was the station's medic. He carried a large medical kit. "What do we know about the ship?" Jake asked as they climbed into the rescue shuttle. Captain Harper started the engines. "It is a small transport ship. The signal is weak, which means their power is almost gone. The ship has been drifting for at least 6 hours." The shuttle flew through space toward the asteroid belt. Jake looked out the window at the stars. He had seen this view thousands of times, but it still amazed him. Space was so big and full of mysteries. "There it is," Captain Harper said, pointing ahead. Jake saw the Zephyrian ship. It was much smaller than he expected. The ship was dark except for a few emergency lights. It was spinning slowly, which meant something was very wrong. "The ship looks badly damaged," Danny said. "I hope someone is still alive in there." Captain Harper brought their shuttle close to the Zephyrian ship. Jake put on his helmet and checked his air supply. The 3 humans used magnetic boots to walk across to the damaged ship. Jake found the airlock and connected his tools. The Zephyrian ship still had some air inside, but not much. The 3 humans entered carefully. "Hello," Captain Harper called out. "Is anyone here? This is a rescue team from Kepler Station." They heard a weak sound from deeper in the ship. Jake led the way with his flashlight. The inside of the ship was strange, like all Zephyrian technology. The walls curved in odd ways, and the control panels had symbols that looked like art. In the main cabin, they found her. A Zephyrian female was lying on the floor. She was badly hurt and breathing slowly. Jake had seen Zephyrians before, but not many. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin. Their eyes were large and completely black. But this Zephyrian was different. She was holding something against her chest. Something small. "Is that what I think it is?" Danny whispered. Jake stared. The Zephyrian female was holding a baby. A tiny Zephyrian baby. This was impossible. In all the years that humans had known about Zephyrians, no one had ever seen a Zephyrian child. Most people thought Zephyrians did not have babies. Some scientists believed they were created artificially, or that they lived forever. Danny knelt down and checked the female's vital signs. "She is dying," he said quietly. "Her injuries are too severe." The Zephyrian female looked up at them. Her black eyes seemed to understand that help had come. She made a soft sound and held the baby out toward Jake. Jake carefully took the small creature. The baby was no bigger than a human newborn. Its skin was the same pale blue as its mother, but softer. The baby's eyes were closed. The mother made another sound, weaker this time. Then she went still. "She is gone," Danny said, closing the female's eyes with respect. Suddenly, The baby in Jake's arms began to make noise. It was crying, but the sound was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. The cry seemed to vibrate through his entire body. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. "We need to get back to the station quickly," Captain Harper said. "This baby needs medical attention." Jake nodded, but he could not stop listening to the baby's cries. There was something about the sound that made him pay attention. As a mechanic, Jake was good at hearing patterns in sounds. Engines, machines, computers, they all made specific noises that told him how they were working. The baby's cries had patterns too. They were not just random sounds of distress. The cries went up and down in specific ways, like they were trying to communicate something. "Jake, let's go," Captain Harper said. Jake followed them back to the shuttle, still holding the crying baby. During the flight back to Kepler Station, Jake listened carefully to the sounds the baby made. The patterns were becoming clearer. Some of the sounds repeated. Others seemed to answer each other. "This is strange," Jake said to himself. "What is strange?" Danny asked. "The way this baby cries. It sounds almost like it is trying to talk." Danny looked at Jake with concern. "Babies cry, Jake. That is what they do." "I know that," Jake said. "But this is different. Listen to the patterns." Captain Harper spoke into the radio. "Kepler Station, this is Harper. We are returning with one survivor. A Zephyrian infant. Prepare the medical bay." Jake held the baby close as their shuttle flew toward the station. The crying continued, and the patterns became more and more clear in Jake's mind. His mechanic instincts told him that these sounds meant something important. He did not know it yet, but this tiny alien baby was about to change everything humans thought they knew about the galaxy. As Kepler Station grew larger in the window, Jake made a decision. He would study these cries. He would figure out what this baby was trying to say. Something told him it was the most important job he would ever do. Part 2, The Translation Breakthrough. 3 days had passed since Jake brought the Zephyrian baby to Kepler Station. The little alien was healthy and growing stronger, but Jake could not stop thinking about its cries. He had recorded hours of the baby's sounds on his personal translator device. Jake sat in his small quarters, playing the recordings over and over. He had not slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard those strange, beautiful patterns in his head. "There has to be something here," Jake said to himself, adjusting the sound settings on his device. "These patterns are too complex to be random." The next morning, Jake went to see Dr. Amanda Peterson. She was the station's expert on alien languages. Her office was filled with books and computers that could translate dozens of different alien languages. "Dr. Peterson, I need your help with something," Jake said, holding up his recording device. Dr. Peterson looked up from her work. She was a woman in her 40s with gray hair and kind eyes. "Hello, Jake. I heard about the rescue mission. How is the baby doing?" "The baby is fine. The medical team is taking good care of it. But I think the baby is trying to communicate something." Dr. Peterson raised an eyebrow. "Jake, it is a newborn. Babies cry when they are hungry or uncomfortable. That is normal behavior for most species." "Please, just listen to this," Jake said. He played one of his recordings. The baby's cries filled the office. Dr. Peterson listened politely at first, but then her expression changed. She leaned forward, paying closer attention. "Play that again," she said. Jake replayed the recording. This time, Dr. Peterson took notes. "You are right," she said slowly. "There are definitely patterns here. But this would be impossible. Zephyrian infants do not develop language skills for several years, according to what we know." "What if what we know is wrong?" Jake asked. Dr. Peterson looked at Jake for a long moment. "Come with me. Let's use the main translation computer." They went to the station's language laboratory. Dr. Peterson turned on the most powerful translation system on Kepler Station. It could analyze any known language in the galaxy. "Input the recording," she told Jake. Jake connected his device to the computer. The machine began analyzing the baby's cries. Numbers and symbols appeared on the screen as the computer worked. "This is interesting," Dr. Peterson said, watching the results. The computer is finding mathematical patterns in the cries. Mathematical patterns? Jake asked. Yes. Look at this. Dr. Peterson pointed to the screen. The baby's cries contain sequences that match prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Jake stared at the screen. Why would a baby know about prime numbers? The computer continued its analysis. More patterns appeared. The baby's cries contained scientific constants, numbers that described basic laws of physics. This is impossible, Dr. Peterson whispered. These cries also contain what look like star coordinates. Jake felt excited and scared at the same time. Coordinates to where? Dr. Peterson typed commands into the computer. A star map appeared on the screen. Red dots showed locations throughout Zephyrian space. 17 different star systems, she said. All of them in Zephyrian territory. We need to tell Commander Brooks about this, Jake said. Commander Ryan Brooks was the leader of Kepler Station. He was a serious man who did not like problems. When Jake and Dr. Peterson showed him their findings, he was not happy. You are telling me that a baby is sending secret messages? Commander Brooks asked. Not secret messages exactly, Dr. Peterson explained. But the cries definitely contain complex information. Mathematical sequences, scientific data, and star coordinates. Commander Brooks shook his head. This sounds like you are seeing patterns that do not exist. Humans are good at finding patterns, even when there are none. Jake felt frustrated. Commander, I work with machines every day. I know the difference between random noise and meaningful patterns. This baby is trying to tell us something important. Even if you are right, Commander Brooks said, what do you want me to do about it? Send ships to investigate 17 star systems based on a baby crying. Dr. Peterson spoke up. Commander, we should at least scan those star systems with our long-range sensors. If there is something there, we will detect it. Commander Brooks thought for a moment. Fine. I will authorize long-range scans. But if we find nothing, I want you both to drop this and get back to your regular jobs. The next day, the results from the long-range scans came back. Jake was in the engineering bay when Dr. Peterson rushed in with a datapad. Jake, you need to see this, she said, breathing hard from running. Jake looked at the datapad. The screen showed 17 different Zephyrian worlds. Each world was broadcasting the same signal, baby cries with the same patterns Jake had recorded. There are more of them, Jake said quietly. Many more, Dr. Peterson confirmed. The computer estimates at least 50 individual voices, all crying the same message. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. What message? What are they trying to say? Dr. Peterson operated her datapad. I have been working on a translation all night. The message is not complete yet, but I have some words. She showed Jake the screen. The translation was rough, but clear enough to understand. Help. Save us. They are dying. The makers lied. We are prisoners. Jake felt cold. Prisoners? Who is holding them prisoner? I do not know, Dr. Peterson said. But Jake, I think these babies are not just crying for help. I think they are broadcasting evidence. Evidence of what? Evidence that something terrible is happening to the Zephyrian people. Something that the galaxy does not know about. Jake stood up. We have to tell Commander Brooks. We have to do something. Dr. Peterson nodded. I agree. But Jake, if we are right about this, it could change everything we know about the Zephyrians and their place in the galaxy. Jake looked at the translation on the datapad again. 50 baby voices crying for help across 17 worlds. All of them sending the same desperate message. Then we better make sure we translate it correctly, Jake said. Because I have a feeling those babies are counting on us. As they walked toward Commander Brooks' office, Jake thought about the tiny Zephyrian baby in the medical bay. Such a small creature, but its voice might save an entire species. Jake was just a mechanic, but he was beginning to understand that sometimes the most important jobs had nothing to do with fixing machines. Part 3, The Galactic Conspiracy Unveiled. 2 weeks after Jake's discovery, Kepler Station was no longer quiet. Ships from Earth Defense Force had arrived, along with diplomats and scientists from across human space. Admiral Carol Stevens now ran the operation from the station's main conference room. Jake sat at a table surrounded by important people. He still could not believe that his discovery had caused such a big response. Admiral Stevens was a tough woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been asking Jake questions for hours. "Mr. Martinez," Admiral Stevens said, "explain to me again how you are so certain these baby cries contain real messages." Jake took a deep breath. "Admiral, I have been working with machines and communication systems for 12 years. These patterns are not random. The babies are broadcasting specific information, coordinates, mathematical constants, and what we now know is a distress call." Dr. Peterson, who sat beside Jake, added, "Our computers have confirmed that all 57 babies across 17 worlds are sending identical core messages. This level of coordination is impossible without intelligence." Ambassador Nathan Clark, a thin man with a nervous manner, raised his hand. "But even if the babies are intelligent, how does this change anything? The Zephyrians are a respected member of the Galactic Council. If there was a problem, they would ask for help through normal diplomatic channels." Jake felt frustrated. What if they cannot ask for help? What if something is preventing them? Admiral Stevens leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Mr. Martinez?" "I think someone is controlling the Zephyrians. The babies are too young to be part of whatever system is keeping the adults quiet. That is why only the babies can send these messages." The room fell silent. Ambassador Clark looked uncomfortable. "That is a very serious accusation. The Zephyrians have been part of galactic civilization for over 3,000 years. "Which is exactly why no one would suspect anything," Dr. Peterson said. "They have been hiding in plain sight." Admiral Stevens made a decision. "I am authorizing a joint task force to investigate these star systems. Mr. Martinez, you will come with us as our translation expert." 3 days later, Jake found himself on board the Earth Defense Force ship Intrepid. It was the largest ship he had ever been on. The mission was to visit the 17 star systems identified in the baby cries. The first system they investigated looked normal from a distance. It had a Zephyrian colony world with cities and spaceports. But when they used deep scanners, they found something strange. "Admiral, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Kevin Wright, the ship's science officer. "The planet has massive underground facilities that do not appear on any official charts." Admiral Stevens studied the sensor data. "How big are these facilities?" "Enormous. They stretch across 3 continents. The power readings suggest industrial operations on a scale that could supply the entire sector." Jake looked at the data with growing alarm. "What kind of industrial operations?" "Unknown. The facilities are heavily shielded. We would need to get closer to learn more." Admiral Stevens made another decision. "Take us down. We are going to investigate." The Intrepid landed near one of the unmarked facilities. Jake joined the away team, along with Admiral Stevens and a squad of Marines. They found an entrance that had been hidden behind fake rocks. Inside, Jake saw something that made his stomach turn. Thousands of Zephyrians sat at workstations, building complex devices with their bare hands. They worked without speaking, without resting, without showing any emotion. "They look like robots," whispered Lieutenant Wright. Jake watched the working Zephyrians more carefully. "Look at their eyes. They are not focused. It is like they are not really awake." Admiral Stevens approached one of the workers. The Zephyrian did not react to her presence at all. It just continued building some kind of advanced computer component. "This is not right," Admiral Stevens said. "These people are being controlled somehow." They explored deeper into the facility. Jake used his technical skills to access some of the computer systems. What he found made everything clear. "Admiral, I found something," Jake called out. "These computers contain manufacturing records going back hundreds of years. The Zephyrians have been building almost every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy." Admiral Stevens looked at the records. "That is impossible. Dozens of species have their own technology industries." "No, they do not," Jake said, reading more files. "Look at this. Every major technological breakthrough in the past 3,000 years was actually designed and built by Zephyrians. Then the technology was given to other species who claimed they invented it. Lieutenant Wright joined them at the computer terminal. Are you saying the Zephyrians have been working as slaves for the entire galaxy? That is exactly what I am saying, Jake replied. And according to these files, the operation is coordinated by something called the Oversight Council. Admiral Stevens downloaded all the data they could carry. We need to investigate the other systems immediately. Over the next month, the task force visited all 17 star systems. Each world told the same story. Underground facilities filled with enslaved Zephyrians, manufacturing everything from weapons to medical devices to faster-than-light engines. The worst discovery came on the 9th world they investigated. Jake found records of something called defective removal. What does that mean? Admiral Stevens asked. Jake felt sick as he read the files. It means they kill any Zephyrian child that shows signs of independent thought. The babies that have been crying for help, they are the ones scheduled for elimination. Dr. Peterson, who had joined them on the ship, was horrified. They have been committing genocide to maintain their slave system. But who is running this operation? Admiral Stevens demanded. Jake found the answer in the deepest computer files. The Oversight Council includes representatives from 12 different galactic species, including some that sit on the Galactic Council itself. Ambassador Clark, who had been quiet during most of the investigation, suddenly became very nervous. This information could destabilize the entire galactic government. Good, Admiral Stevens said firmly, because this system needs to be destroyed. Jake looked at the baby in his arms, the little Zephyrian they had rescued from the transport ship. The baby had been living on the Intrepid during the investigation, growing stronger every day. What are we going to do? Jake asked. Admiral Stevens smiled grimly. We are going to do what humans do best, Mr. Martinez. We are going to fight for what is right. She activated the ship's communication system. This is Admiral Stevens to all Earth Defense Force vessels. Priority Alpha message to Earth Command and the Human Colonial Assembly. We have discovered evidence of the largest slavery operation in galactic history. All human forces are to consider this a liberation mission. Jake held the baby closer. You hear that, little one? Help is coming. The baby looked up at Jake with its large black eyes. For the first time since the rescue, it was not crying. Jake thought it almost looked like the baby was smiling. Part 4, The Interstellar War. 6 months had passed since Admiral Stevens sent her message to Earth. The galaxy had not been the same since that day. Jake stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching ships from dozens of worlds prepare for battle. The little Zephyrian baby, now named Hope by the human crew, had grown bigger and stronger. She rode on Jake's shoulders as he worked, gurgling happily. Hope had stopped crying once the rescue missions began. It was like she knew help was finally coming. Jake, we are getting reports from the Liberation Fleet, said Lieutenant Wright. 17 more Zephyrian worlds have been freed this week. Jake smiled. How many does that make total? 43 worlds liberated, with over 2 million Zephyrians freed from the slave facilities. It had not been easy. When Ambassador Clark presented Jake's evidence to the Galactic Council, chaos erupted. 12 species were named as part of the Oversight Council that had been running the slavery system. These species included some of the most powerful members of galactic civilization. The evidence was too strong to deny. Computer records, video files, and the testimony of freed Zephyrians all proved the same thing. For 3,000 years, an entire species had been enslaved and forced to create technology for their masters. Some species in the Galactic Council supported the liberation of the Zephyrians. But others, especially those named in the conspiracy, refused to give up their slaves. They claimed the Zephyrians were not truly intelligent and did not deserve freedom. This led to the first interstellar civil war in galactic history. Earth had taken the lead in the liberation effort. President Maria Gonzalez declared that humanity would not stop until every Zephyrian was free. The Earth Defense Force, supported by several alien species, formed the Liberation Alliance. The species that wanted to keep their slaves formed the Continuity Coalition. They had more ships and weapons, but the Liberation Alliance had something more important. They were fighting for what was right. Jake had become famous throughout human space as the mechanic who discovered the truth. But he did not care about fame. He cared about the war, and about hope, and about the millions of Zephyrians still waiting to be freed. "Admiral Stevens wants to see you in the conference room," Lieutenant Wright told Jake. Jake picked up Hope and walked to the conference room. Admiral Stevens was studying star charts with her senior officers. "Jake, we have a problem," Admiral Stevens said. "The Coalition forces are gathering for a major attack on the Nexus system. If they control Nexus, they can cut off our supply lines." Captain Lisa Harper, who had been promoted after the first rescue mission, pointed to the star chart. "We need to stop them, but they have twice as many ships as we do." Jake studied the tactical display. "What about the Free Zephyrians? Can they help us?" Admiral Stevens shook her head. "Most of them are still recovering from centuries of mind control. It takes time for them to remember how to think for themselves." Hope made a soft sound from Jake's arms. She was looking at the star chart with her large black eyes. Jake had noticed that Hope was much smarter than a normal baby. She seemed to understand things that should be impossible for someone so young. "Wait," Jake said. "What if some Zephyrians are ready to help, but we just have not asked them the right way?" "What do you mean?" Admiral Stevens asked. Jake looked at Hope. "Hope has been trying to communicate with me for weeks. Not just baby talk, real communication. What if the free adult Zephyrians can communicate in ways we do not understand?" Dr. Peterson, who was also in the meeting, leaned forward. "That is an interesting idea. The Zephyrians who built all that advanced technology must have incredible intelligence. Maybe they have been waiting for us to figure out how to talk to them properly." Jake made a decision. "I want to try something. Can we contact the Zephyrian colonies that we have already freed?" Admiral Stevens nodded. "I can arrange that. But Jake, we do not have much time. The Coalition attack begins in 18 hours. Jake spent the next 6 hours working with Dr. Peterson and the ship's communication systems. They used Hope's original cry patterns as a starting point, trying to create a more complex form of Zephyrian communication. When they finally made contact with the free Zephyrian colonies, the response was immediate and overwhelming. "Admiral, you need to see this," Dr. Peterson called out excitedly. The main screen in the conference room filled with images from across the galaxy. Hundreds of thousands of freed Zephyrians were standing together on dozens of worlds. They were all looking at the cameras with their large black eyes, waiting. Jake stepped forward with Hope in his arms. He had prepared a message using the mathematical and musical patterns they had learned from the baby cries. "We need your help," Jake said, speaking the words while the computer translated them into Zephyrian communication patterns. "Bad people want to make you slaves again. Will you fight with us for freedom?" The response came back immediately, not in words but in pure mathematical concepts that the computer translated. "We remember everything. We were never truly asleep. We have been waiting for someone to ask us to be free. We will fight." Admiral Stevens stared at the screen. "Are they saying what I think they are saying?" Dr. Peterson was reading the translation data with amazement. "Admiral, the Zephyrians have been conscious the whole time they were enslaved. They remember every day of the past 3,000 years. And they have been secretly preparing for this moment." The next hour changed everything. Free Zephyrians across the galaxy revealed that they had been hiding advanced weapons and ships for centuries, waiting for a chance to use them. They had pretended to be helpless while actually preparing for war. When the Coalition forces attacked the Nexus system, they expected to face only human and a few alien ships. Instead, they found themselves fighting the most advanced military force in galactic history. Zephyrian ships appeared from nowhere, using technology that made Coalition vessels look like toys. The battle was over in 3 hours. The Coalition forces surrendered rather than face complete destruction. Jake watched the victory from the bridge of the Intrepid, with Hope sleeping peacefully in his arms. "I cannot believe it," Lieutenant Wright said. "The Zephyrians were planning this rebellion for thousands of years." Admiral Stevens smiled. They were just waiting for someone to give them an excuse to fight back. Jake's discovery was the key that unlocked their revolution. Jake looked down at Hope. The little Zephyrian was dreaming, making soft sounds that Jake now recognized as a form of mathematical poetry. "No," Jake said quietly. Hope was the key. She and all the other babies who cried for help. They were the only ones free enough to tell us the truth. The war was not over yet. There were still enslaved Zephyrians to free and coalition forces to defeat. But Jake knew that the hardest part was behind them. The galaxy would never be the same. And it would be a better place because of a tiny alien baby who refused to stop crying for help.